on the MS4 webpage. It'll be there for you to review and to share with others in your stormwater program if you'd like to do that. And remember, like I say, if you do leave your post, your successor needs to take this training, but they can watch the recording to hold them over until the next live session. So like I said, it'll help if you're in between training sessions, but the next person who's doing the SPC role needs to come to one of these, register and sign up and get certified at the end of it. We expect this training to last about 3 hours. We will take a couple of short breaks to address some of the questions and comments from the chat, and we'll give you a chance to stretch your legs. Since this training is mandatory, I'm not sure why I'm getting so much pickup. Are we okay? All right. If you haven't muted yourself, please do that. It's hard to hear with the echo. Okay, since the training's mandatory, we are going to be monitoring and recording attendance to make sure that the SPC for every single town has been trained. I think it's due for everyone to get this training in the next 3 years. So I think January 1st, 2026, everyone needs to have this training. So we'll be kind of keeping track of all that. All right, I'm going to flip to the next slide. I'm going to turn off my camera so you can just focus on the slide. There we go. Okay. Let's talk about what we're gonna cover today. This is our agenda. The goal is to explain the role of the Stormwater Program Coordinator and to describe what's expected for compliance with all the permit conditions. As we go through the requirements, we're going to show you the pages that correspond with the section of the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan that you'll be filling out. So you're going to see how all of the permit conditions sort of tie into the pages of the SPPP. Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan is SPPP. Okay, after this, we will get into a little more detail on the mapping, the Watershed Improvement Plan, and the NJDEP online portal, which you've already been using if you've sent us an annual report. Whether you're an old Tier B or an old Tier A, everyone's used the NJDEP online portal to submit annual reports, but there's more you can do with it, and we'll talk about that today. Recently, some of you have already been submitting your files to us through the Stormwater Document Submittal Service, things like maps, and for those who have already submitted their SPPPs, we've gotten them through this service. Okay, so those are the things we're going to talk about. We set aside about a half hour at the end for Q&A. We may or may not need that, but we'll see what happens. Okay, let's start with the responsibilities of the Stormwater Program Coordinator, SPC, and we'll show you some of the department's resources that we have available on our website. Okay, as the SPC, you are going to be the main point of contact for your municipality for all things stormwater. The mayor or some other ranking elected official will typically appoint the SPC. And in most cases, this job goes to the public works supervisor or maybe the township engineer, although we do have a handful of clerks and mayors themselves who are filling this role. We understand that a lot of you are hired from a private consulting firm, and that you also may work for multiple towns. You might not just be the SPC for one. You could have 2 or 3. Whatever the case is, it's really, really important that the department case manager, the MS4 case manager, like me, Christina, Kristen, you've heard of Louisa, Suna, Hannah, Gabby, Natalie, Tim. I think maybe I hit everyone? I think so. There's not a lot of us, but we've split up the counties. We really need to know who the SPC contact is for your town. We send all of the key stormwater correspondence to that person. And like I said, we're tracking attendance for things that are mandatory like this. If there's ever a problem in your town and we get a call from one of the residents, we understand there's, you may have a Mr. Complainy Pants in your town, and they don't just call you, they call us, and then we will probably touch base with you and say, okay, what's going on here? So that's the significance of who's the SPC. That's in a nutshell what your job is, to know how to comply with the permit and to take care of everything when it's time. All right, so we will go into more details about each of the bullets. And so as As far as permit compliance goes, as the SPC, you're going to be receiving correspondence from the department regarding permit compliance issues. Not necessarily, oh, you're doing it wrong. Just that this is stuff you need to be aware of. And this is, if you're not sure how to do something, you have someone to ask. You are probably not the person to do all of the stormwater work on your own, but you are the person who's responsible for making sure that things get done in a way that comply with the Tier A permit. Okay, let's talk about the SP3. You will need to prepare an SP3, which is essentially the document that details each permit requirement and explains your town's stormwater program. If you don't already have one, we can help you with that. Most of you should already have one. If you're a former Tier B, that's a reason why you haven't done this yet. But if you're an original Tier A, you should have one. It needs to be submitted to the department, updated as needed. And what you're going to do is review it each year during annual employee training. The submission to the department is actually a new requirement for the original Tier A towns. We used to have you post it and have it on hand, but we never said send it to us for review. But we're doing that this year. So the original Tier A towns, your old model from let's say 2019 isn't going to work because that reflects the old permit conditions. What we need now is to see all the permit conditions in the 2023 permit. So we're going to talk about the template that we created a little bit later. You don't have to use it, but it's probably a good idea if you do, or at least check it out and make sure that your SP3 looks like that. Okay, you as the SPC are responsible for making sure that all required submissions are made to the department and to the county as needed on time. All right. You're also going to make sure that the appropriate information is posted on a dedicated stormwater webpage on your municipal website. Okay, we will talk about that again a little bit later. As SPC, you're going to need to make sure that public notices and outreach opportunities are communicated properly to your residents and businesses in your town. Excuse me. And you're also the person to make sure that everyone who has a role in your stormwater program gets the right training. You will submit your annual report and any documents that get attached to it. You can do this as early as January 1st if you're like a Ned Flanders kind of person, but it has to be submitted no later than May 1st every year. That's your annual report, and depending on what's going on in your town, you may have different things to attach to it. Okay, lastly, you're going to keep records that are accurate and complete for all your stormwater activities and just keep them on hand. The stormwater permitting unit is not the same as enforcement. So we don't exactly come out and check things, but there is a group of enforcement staff who will come out periodically, and they're going to say, okay, I'd like to see your public outreach notifications, or show me your records for street sweeping or inspecting outfalls. They're going to need to see that. So you as the SPC needs to make sure that's something you can produce upon request. Okay, before we get into every little condition, I just want to quickly show you what our stormwater webpage looks like. I know it's impossible to see, it's like microscopic here, but this will at least look familiar when you get there. And this is the MS4 webpage where you can find details about everything that we're going to talk about today. There are links to the permit, compliance schedules, fillable templates, forms, sample materials, a link to get directly on the NJDEP online. There's a list of case managers by county, so you know which of us to talk to if you have an issue. And there's some other related resources. So just showing you where it is. So this is the place to go if you need any help after we talk. And you can always email us too. We don't bite. When we make any significant updates or create new materials, we typically send a notice through email, like an email blast to all the SPCs, and then we post it on this webpage here that you see. All right. And one last thing, let's talk about some money that we have for you. Stormwater assistance grants. By now you should have already heard from the department, either just like a general message or straight from your case manager, your county case manager here, that we have some assistance grants for all Tier A towns. And this is a non-competitive grant, and the application process is very simple. I'll show you what it looks like on the next slide. So the way it works, I'm going to click on this, the original Tier A's. The way it works is you just send us a one-page application to get the first payment. We reply with an email to say, yes, we got it, and you're approved. And we'll give you an idea of when you can expect that first check. It's normally about 30 days after you get the approval from us. So if you're an original Tier A, look on the left side here, you're going to get a total of $25,000 for doing things that you're required to do anyway. So I don't know why you wouldn't, but we haven't gotten 100% response. Maybe after this we will. So the first check is to get $15,000, and the money there is to help develop your stormwater infrastructure map. The second check is going to be for $10,000, and that comes after you give us your map and we approve it. So we're going to be looking for, everyone needs to turn in their map by January 1st, 2026. So you have a lot of time and you get a little money for it. And then that's how you get a total of $25,000. You are absolutely welcome to submit your infrastructure map sooner than the deadline. We've had a couple already come in, and we're in the process of going back and forth a little bit and making sure we got exactly what we need in the right format. But then next thing to happen is look in the mail. You'll get more money. A lot of towns are taking advantage of this, particularly if they're using our free mapping tool and spending grant money to purchase things like tablets or other devices to download the tool onto, or to pay staff who are actually out in the field doing the work with the tool. If you do have money left over, all this is complete, the department is going to be looking for your approved map. That's the most important thing, that you send us a map and it gets approved, and then everybody's happy. If you have leftover money, the money can certainly be used towards other areas of your stormwater program in a way that supports permit compliance. Okay, here's the bigger chunk of money is for the new Tier A towns, $75,000. The first check that they get is for sending us the one-page application, which I said I'll show you in just a sec. That money is to just kind of get things off the ground, get you started on your program in a way that complies with the Tier A permit. The second check that you'll get will come after you submit your SP3 to us. Like I said, we're going to talk a little more about the template. It's a fillable sort of thing, so it'll prompt you to answer, like fill in the blanks kind of a thing. Once you've done that and you send it in to us, your case manager will take a look at it. We're doing like a review so everything's fair and consistent. You're not going to, get an easy A from one case manager and a hard grade from another. So when you get your approved SP3, you'll get a check for $50,000. Again, this one's due by the end of the year, January 1st, 2024. I've already had a couple come from an old Tier B town, so they're waiting for their check. I just have to review it once we figure out how to do it consistently. But it should be very soon. So please do keep the SP3s coming, and if you have questions, talk to your case manager. So for the new Tier A towns, you're really going to need to take a look at your town and focus on and determine how to best spend the $75,000. The money obviously has to be used towards the stormwater program in compliance with the permit, but you might need to earmark it for something special. It depends on your town, what you already have in place. You might use some of the money for your infrastructure map. You might use it to pay for some upgrades at your maintenance yard, for example. It's going to depend on what you have in place and what you need to do to bring your town into permit compliance. Okay, the department had 2 outreach sessions in March 2023 to discuss these grants. If you missed it, there's a link right here at the top of the slide. You can go to this link and you can watch a recording of the outreach session, where you can just click around and get some information. This is also where you'll find these forms. Be careful. If you're an original Tier A town, use this one on the left. It'll say grant application form for original Tier A municipalities. And if you're new, if you used to be a Tier B, use this one. New Tier A MS4 permit. This is the one you want. The conditions are slightly different, so that's why we didn't have one that suits everybody. That would have been easy. It's a fillable PDF, so just fill out the information, And at the bottom, you're going to have a municipal official sign and certify with either an electronic signature, or you can do a wet ink signature, either way. And you can just email this to us. The directions are also on this link. There's like a second page to the application. It'll tell you exactly where to mail it. You don't have to send it snail mail. We don't need paper copies. You can just email it to us, but whatever floats your boat, we're fine. Okay. Now, let's really get into it. These are each of the permit conditions, and we're going to start off with creating a stormwater pollution prevention plan. You're going to create one and then maintain it for the rest of time. Your SP3 is a document that should be considered your town's stormwater manual, basically a how-to for staff to know what they need to do, how to do it, and when to do it. The SPC needs to review it every year, update it as needed, and reference it during the annual training of municipal staff. All the conditions in the MS4 permit need to be included in your SP3, where you will describe the unique details of how your town is meeting the conditions. It should be thorough enough for someone to pick it up and have a pretty good idea how to carry out operations. For example, street sweeping. When you describe your program, it needs to be specific about which of your municipal roads get swept 3 times a year, which ones get swept once a year, and which ones you don't sweep at all, the ones that aren't required to be swept anyway. You could write something like this. We sweep all municipal roads with storm drain inlets north of Main Street and west of Park Avenue during the first week of March, July, and November. Something like that. Or you can attach an annotated map of your town that shows some sort of illustration of which areas are swept on a particular schedule. Whatever you choose, that's the level of detail that needs to be in your SP3 for every condition. So don't just cut and paste generic language from the permit or from our model SP3. You should have something that's kind of tailored to your town. Original Tier A towns need to update their old SP3. Like I mentioned before, the old permit does not include these conditions, not all of them, and some of them have been modified. So you need to really redo it. And the new Tier A towns will obviously need to create one because this was not a requirement in the Tier B permit. Keep in mind, if you're a Tier B, former Tier B, that $50,000 check is going to come once you fill this out and send it to us and we approve it. So just a quick note about filling it out. This goes for everybody. Don't leave things blank. There's some conditions that aren't required yet. Don't just skip it. Just say something really high level, like a description of the steps that you're going to take to satisfy the permit condition. Then once you actually start doing it, then you can put in like a more concrete description of the program that you've developed. You can say something like, we plan to blah, 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 whatever. That's fine. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty. Just don't leave things blank. Like I said, you're going to be reviewing this thing annually. So if you've come up to the time where you're now doing the thing that wasn't due before last year, let's say, just update it then. And you're going to be sending it in to us every time you make an update. The department has a template to work from that you are not actually required to use, but I would definitely like you to take a look at it because it will guarantee that you cover every permit condition. Our template is available on our MS4 webpage. There's a fillable PDF format. There's a fillable Word document. Excuse me. So whichever way you go, when you get it finished, you need to post your SP3 on your municipal webpage. You need to discuss it during your annual training of municipal staff and submit it to the department through the stormwater document submittal service, which again, we're going to walk through that later in the presentation. And as I mentioned before, we're going to be showing you our model SP3 that we filled in with some phony, some fake town information. So it'll give you a little bit of an idea. As we go through the conditions, I'll show you what it looks like. So let's keep moving. Here's the cover page, for example. You're going to add the name of your township, your county, your permit number, and the date that you last reviewed this document. And if you don't know any of this information, like your permit number, for example, maybe you're brand new as the SPC and someone kind of dumped it on you and you're like, oh, I don't even know anything. That's fine. Just reach out to your county case manager and we can get you straightened out. The next page is just a table of contents. It's kind of cool because you can just click on it. This is not in this PowerPoint, but in the actual template, it'll jump to, like if I clicked on ordinances, it'll jump right to Form 5. It's neat for easy navigation. Form 1 is real straightforward, just the contact information for key people who support your stormwater program. This goes for anybody you hire that's not a full-time municipal person. So maybe you hire an engineer from a firm. You put their name in here. It's not just, municipal people who work in your town full-time. Okay, and if you have any sort of shared service arrangements, there's a section at the bottom for that. Okay, another straightforward one. This is a form where you just would note the date of any changes you make to it and what form got impacted and a super short summary of what exactly you changed. So you have a history. So let's move along to some permit conditions. And then, like I said, we'll hit a couple conditions and I'll show you the page after that. So public outreach. This is something that all municipalities, regardless of what tier you were, have been required to do from the beginning of the MS4 program. Just to comply with state and local public notice laws, you need to announce certain permit-related actions to let your community know when important updates are happening. Public notices are typically announced in things like newspapers, social media, municipal websites. You can also choose to send a direct email to your residents and businesses in your town, or do some combination of those things. Whatever you like to do is fine with us. Examples of activities that require public notice are the adoption or amendments to any of the stormwater ordinances and your municipal stormwater management plan. That's a piece of the master plan. So if something changes in there, that's something you would public notice. Okay, let's talk about your municipal stormwater webpage. Your materials that are related to this permit need to be posted on a dedicated stormwater webpage on your website, where the public can find all your materials related to stormwater in one place. Having a dedicated stormwater webpage is something new for all permittees. The original Tier A towns were always required to post their materials somewhere on their municipal web pages, and you'd have maybe ordinances in one place and your SP3 on another spot. With this new permit, we want everything in one-stop shopping kind of a place. We have a template. I'll talk about that in a sec. So these are the things that need to be posted right away. You should be able to post your SP3, and I don't mean right away today, but soon you should be able to post your SP3, your municipal stormwater management plan, all of your ordinances, and your outfall map. These are things that were due in the last permit. This should not be anything new for you. So these things you should be able to post, very, very soon on a dedicated web page. Then by January 1st, 2026, a bunch of different things come up. That's a due date for a handful of things. So some of them need to be posted on your dedicated webpage. You would be adding your MS4 infrastructure map, your watershed improvement plan, whatever stage you're in for that. And we're going to talk about those things a little bit later. So this is not like a one and done kind of a thing. Every time you update your SP3, you're going to sort of refresh this post, the post on the web page. Anytime something new happens to your map, you're going to refresh it there on your web page. And anytime you move to a new phase of the watershed improvement plan, you're going to post new things here. So we have a free, easy to use template. And I kind of joke because I say easy. I've never done it. It might be really hard, but everyone tells us it's easy. And so you can use our template if you would like to. It's pretty straightforward. We have some staff who are in-house here who can give you one-on-one, like walk you right through it. If your web page administrator needs a little help, just let us know. Some of you are already using our old web page template, so we just refreshed it and added spaces for some new things. The link to that free template is right here on the slide. Okay. As also in previous years, the SPC is going to arrange for a variety of education and outreach activities for the public. We're still using a 12-point system, and you can pick different things. You need to select activities from at least 3 of the 5 categories that we describe in the permit attachment. This isn't in the body of the permit, it's an attachment at the end. I think it's attachment A. This is just like a little on the slides, just a quick summary of what those categories are. As the SPC, you need to keep records of the activities and report them in your annual report. You don't have to attach them, just say what you did. There's some questions there in that report. If you need some ideas or some materials, we do have a few things on our MS4 webpage that you might like to use. For example, we have some template style flyers that you can copy. There's some in color, some are black and white. You can insert the name of your town and your website information, your contact information, and mail it out, like mail a hard copy. You can do double-sided for extra points. Something that you were already going to mail out, like your tax bills. You can have an announcement about ordinances on one side. I think that's worth 3 points. And then just like a generic stormwater, how to keep the water clean on the other side. That's 2 points. That's a 5-point mailer right there. So we have other ideas, but that's just one. Okay, as promised, this is the SP3 page that kind of captures those first couple of permit conditions that I talked about. So this is where you're going to provide a link to your dedicated stormwater webpage. You're going to indicate who in your town is responsible for webpage content, keeping it refreshed. And you're going to list which outlets you use to post your stormwater related information, like those public announcements, to members of your community. That covers the first 3 permit conditions we just talked about, kind of rolled up in one form. We consolidated things like this where we could to keep the SP3 kind of short and sweet. So moving on. Everybody okay? Nobody's falling asleep? I got some knock-knock jokes. No, I won't. Okay. Just making sure. I got a couple smiles. So thank you. This is hard without a live audience. All right. The SPC needs to ensure that all entities whose construction projects that disturb 1 acre or more, or a project that's part of a common plan of development that disturbs 1 acre or more, gets a 5G3 permit or an individual industrial stormwater permit before starting construction. This is something you probably are well aware of, but just in case you're not, it's not a new condition. The 5G3 permit, though, was renewed in 2022 with a couple minor changes, no big whoop. But take a look at it. There's the link on the slide if you'd like to. And keep in mind it applies to projects undertaken by the municipality as well as private companies and individuals. This is major projects, not minor projects. Someone asked that last time. All right, moving on to post-construction stormwater management in new development and redevelopment. This condition really just highlights the requirement related to stormwater management designs for major, the designs for major development projects. If you are the SPC, but you're not the engineer, I know we have a lot of that, you don't need to know all the technical details, but you need to be familiar with this process. For starters, you should know what your town considers a major development project. Does it match the definition in the stormwater management rules, or is it more stringent? Engineers who review and approve major development projects must be different from the people who design those projects. They can work in the same firm, that's fine, if that's something you outsource, but the person who designs the stormwater management design, this needs to be someone different than the person who reviews it. So review engineers, if you're one, you already know this, they need to complete the department's stormwater management design review, or we kind of shorten it to SWMDR, SWMDR. The SWMDR course is required every 5 years to stay certified. Your reviewer also needs to attend any training that we have on rule amendments if the department determines that training is warranted for an amendment to the stormwater management rules. We just had one last week, that last Tuesday, I think we did one. So probably a lot of you who are engineers already are well aware of that and you attended. DEP certification has always been required for the original Tier A towns, but this is something new for the new Tier A towns. We will talk a little bit more about this when we get to the training section, but just so you know, you can check our webpage for a list of department certified engineers to confirm the status of the engineer for your town. if you're not sure if they need to attend it, you can see the list. It's like an alphabetical long list. So the reviewer needs to ensure that the projects are designed in accordance with the rule NJAC 7:8, the department's BMP manual, and that the project also is constructed according to the approved plan. So in a nutshell, that's what you need to know as an SPC. Those are the things that your engineer really needs to be focusing on. Okay, related to that is your Municipal Stormwater Management Plan, or MSWMP. This is a high-level description of your municipality's strategy and the stormwater infrastructure that's used to reduce flood damage, or reduce flooding that might cause damage, to minimize stormwater runoff and soil erosion from development, maintain groundwater recharge and maintain stream integrity, and to minimize pollutants and stormwater runoff. All of those things are the kind of covered in your MSWMP, and all of it's done in a way that protects public safety. If you're not familiar with this document, we do have a sample. Our model is posted on the MS4 webpage. You can just check it out and just get a feel for it. And it should also be part of your town's master plan. So look it up and kind of get familiar with what that is. With the recent amendments to the inland flood protection rule, the sample may be updated at some point and will be emailed to the SPC for each town to adopt an updated plan in your town. That hasn't happened yet. Even when there are no changes, though, to your MSWMP, your town needs to re-examine it at least every 10 years and send it to the county for reapproval, because this is related to the rule with your municipal master plans. They are required to be re-examined, even if there's no change, every 10 years at least. And since the MSWMP is part of the master plan, that's what the requirement is, to re-adopt it at least every 10 years. Okay, next up is the Stormwater Control Ordinance, or SCO. This here is your town's mechanism to enforce proper stormwater management designs for major development projects. In mid-July, we shared 2 versions of our revised model SCO, and these are posted on our website, and they were also sent out to all the SPCs and all the engineers we knew of. One of the versions includes language that simply cites the applicable subchapter and sections of the stormwater management rules instead of the full text. So the idea with doing this, keeping it simplified, is whenever the rules change in the future, you won't necessarily need to amend your SCO. Saves you a little bit of legwork. The other model that we posted is the long version with all the details in there. That it has the full text. So if you like to see it laid out like that, if you want to use that one, that is absolutely fine. You can use our model with the full text in there. It just means that future rule amendments may impact your SCO, and it'll make it much more likely for you to have to, revise, amend, adopt that SCO. So it's your choice. And either one of them, you can add your own thing. So if you tailor it to be slightly different than our model, you can choose either one. Okay, each amendment to your SCO needs to be submitted to the county planning board and to the department, and then it gets posted on that dedicated stormwater webpage I talked about. One little caveat, Pinelands towns, whether you're fully Pineland town or partial Pineland town, you will need to consider the Pinelands Commission's model in those designated areas. And if you're a Pinelands town, you probably already know that, so just be aware. You may also, if you're partial, you might have our SCO and the Pinelands model both in play. Okay, mitigation plans. This is something optional. If your town wants the ability to grant variances from the design and performance standards for stormwater management measures, there needs to be a written mitigation plan that meets the criteria posted in the rules and describes the measures to offset the deficit created by granting the variance. The mitigation plan must be included in your municipal stormwater management plan and your SCO. And each time your town grants a variance, you need to send a report describing what the variance is to the department and to your local county planning board. The permit requires updates to the MSWMP and SCO to reflect amendments to the stormwater management rules at NJAC 7:8 within 1 year of the rule adoption. All right, let's move on to something else. Well, first, this is the form 4 of the SP3, where you're going to summarize the key aspects of how your town manages stormwater management for major development projects. This is where, if you are not the engineer, you're going to probably want your engineer to weigh in here. You're going to provide your town's definition of the major development, what a major development is, highlights of your SCO, your process for reviewing applications, your mitigation plan, if you have one, and some history of your adoption and revisions to your SCO and municipal stormwater management plan. And just, I want to point out here in that last field, don't just put the date of the last adoption. Show us, we adopted it in whatever, April 2005, and then we revised it and readopted it in May of 2015, and so on. Just so we can see, someday there might be a question about a project and we can see exactly when things were changed. Okay. Let's talk about some ordinances. Earlier, we talked about the stormwater control ordinance, which is related to major development projects. Now, this set that I'm about to talk about is aimed at minimizing stormwater pollution and flooding throughout the community, not just at the major development sites. And the purpose is to have a mechanism for you to go after people who are doing bad things that are going to pollute the stormwater. They're intended to keep streams, lakes, etc. cleans, so the pollutants can't contribute to things like harmful algal blooms or HABs. You might have problems like beach closings and a host of other negative impacts. So we're going to go through each one very briefly to explain the purpose of them. Some are obvious. I mean, pet waste, intended to keep people cleaning up after their pets so their waste stays out of the stormwater system and ultimately out of the watershed. Next, wildlife feeding ordinance. This one's intended to keep people from feeding ducks and geese. First of all, it's terrible for them. They don't need bread. But it also, for our purposes here, for the permit, it's to discourage them from gathering where they can leave droppings that will end up in the polluting the watershed. Litter control. This ordinance is intended to keep trash, solids, floatables, and residual pollutants from contaminating stormwater and causing flooding due to debris clogging the MS4. Excuse me. Towns can either adopt an ordinance like this, like our model, or you can simply enforce the state litter statute to meet this requirement. You just need to tell us that's what you're doing, if that's what you choose to do. All right. Improper disposal of waste ordinance. This one's really intended to keep people from purposefully dumping things into the stormwater system. You know, you've seen people dumping grease down the storm drain, or paint, motor oil, other hazardous waste. Obvious no. This is how you can go after them and say you're not allowed to do that. All right, yard waste. There's two flavors here. Overall, the yard waste ordinance is intended to keep leaves and grass from polluting and clogging the stormwater system. We have two kinds. There's different choices. You can adopt a containerized yard waste ordinance. If your town picks up leaves and grass and you want them to be placed out on the road in either bags or some other container, that's the containerized yard waste ordinance. If you are a town that does pick up, but you want the leaves and grass to be left out in an open pile by the road, that's what you would adopt the loose yard waste ordinance. And the ordinance here specifies that loose grass and leaves have to be at least 10 feet away from any storm drain and put out no sooner than 7 days prior to the scheduled pickup. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, we don't do pickup. I live in a town that doesn't do this kind of pickup. That's fine. You would still adopt the loose yard waste ordinance. And the reason is it also applies to anybody who hires someone to pick up, or, like a private provider. We want there to be a mechanism in place that keeps people from sticking their grass and leaves out in a way that's going to wash into the storm drain. But they might have someone coming, like a private collector. That applies to them too. And this also means that nobody in your town at all should be intentionally blowing leaves and grass into the street where they can then wash into the storm drain system. I've seen people cutting their grass and then they take a leaf blower and blow the grass out into the street, and then they keep going sometimes right into a storm drain. We're like, no, don't do that. So this mechanism, the loose yard waste mechanism, is a way for you to go after people who have a problem with this. All right, almost getting there. Private storm drain inlet retrofitting. This one's intended to ensure that new storm drains that are installed on private property follow the design standard in permit attachment B. The current inlet design keeps most solids and floatables out of the MS4. Retrofitting is also required for projects that involve repaving and resurfacing that are in direct contact with the old style storm drain inlets. Okay. Illicit connections. This ordinance is intended to ensure that people don't contaminate stormwater by making a physical connection. For example, hooking a sanitary wastewater pipe from their home or their sewer, home sewer, or their business right into the storm drain system. Okay, this is a new one. This is new for the old Tier A's, the original Tier A's. You've already seen this one, the privately owned salt storage ordinance. We sent this one out and it's been finalized. This one's intended to ensure that salt piles that are left out are properly covered if they're not in a permanent structure. Salt can be stored in a temporary way in a neat pile with full coverage to minimize runoff. There's details in the ordinance. I'm not going to, read the whole thing right now, but that's the gist of it. That's what it's meant for. Okay, and everyone's favorite, this one is still not final. The tree removal and replacement ordinance. We've heard a lot from you. We have hundreds of comments on this one, so stay tuned for the final. In a nutshell, it's intended to ensure that trees are removed only when necessary and replaced in a responsible manner. And the purpose is to reduce erosion and promote stormwater infiltration. Like I said, we're still reviewing all the comments that we received from, we put it out twice for input. So we had a lot of you comment. Once it's finalized, we will send it out to you in an email blast and we'll post it on our MS4 webpage so you can see all the details about that. Okay. I wanted to mention too that once that tree ordinance is final, we are going to put all of these ordinances together in a stormwater ordinance package. This is going to be particularly helpful for the new Tier A towns. If you're a former Tier B, you may not have any of these ordinances adopted. And rather than adopt 9 individual ones, I mean, you might like to do it that way. That's fine, you can. But we are also going to provide one big fat ordinance that has all of these listed in there. And you can just, adopt one and sign it and make it happen. So that's something to look out for. We'll send you an email about that. That's all I need to say about ordinances, I think. This is the form, though, that you would list all your ordinances that are required when you adopted it. If you didn't use our model, you could just explain why yours is different, like why is it more stringent? Who in your town does the enforcement and what kind of fines are associated with violations? That's what that far right column is. If you have some additional ordinances, we know there's a few towns that have their own special things that they like that are related to stormwater. You would just list it here on the form, and at the bottom you would just indicate where all your records are for enforcement or fine records, any problems you have. That's what that form's all about. All right, my time's almost done. This is my last section here. Street sweeping. So street sweeping provides more than just aesthetic benefits. It keeps solids, floatables, and residual pollutants out of the watershed. We know a lot of towns sweep no matter what. If it wasn't in this permit, they were still going to sweep because it looks nice, but we're really focused on keeping pollutants out of the watershed. Street sweeping of municipal roads is a new condition for the new Tier A towns, and if you're an original Tier A town, the criteria has been modified slightly from the previous permit. I have some pictures on the next slide. I think it'll really clear up any questions you might have about it. So stay tuned for that. As the SPC, though, you are responsible for making sure that sweeping happens in accordance with the permit requirements. So I'll explain it. Roads that have inlets that drain to surface water get swept 3 times a year. Or any roads that directly drain to surface water get swept 3 times a year. Roads that don't have inlets, but drain to a surface water directly, like through a conveyance system, like a ditch or a swale, they get swept once a year. And you're not required to sweep roads that don't have inlets if they don't drain to any sort of conveyance or directly to surface water. Let me go to the pictures on the next slide and give you an idea. This is the easy one. This is just a gravel road. You're only going to be sweeping, first of all, municipal roads. The county and state have their own to take care of. So just focus on your municipal roads. This first picture, obviously you're not going to sweep this one. Please don't sweep chip roads or tar and chip roads, dirt roads, any kind of gravel roads. It's not going to get you anywhere. Here's a picture of a road that does not discharge to surface water. There's no storm drain inlets. You don't have to sweep this. You might want to if there's, trash and debris and stuff on the road and you think it looks bad. But we do not require you in this permit to sweep a road like this. Okay, here we go. If you have a road like this, though, just out in the middle of nowhere, there's a ditch or a swale that connects to a creek or some other surface water, you're going to sweep these kind of roads once a year. There might be a time where you have a ditch or swale that is just like kind of a dead end. It doesn't connect to anything. If that's the case, you just have a way to get the water off the road so it doesn't flood and it's just going to sit there. You don't have to sweep that. But if your ditch or swale connects to a creek or other surface water, yes, sweep it once a year. All right, and this last picture is a road with storm drain inlets. You're going to be sweeping a road like this at least 3 times a year. And you can see there's a lot of crud down there, so high time to sweep that one. If your road has inlets just in a few places, you don't have to sweep the entire road. You would just sweep that section that drains to the inlet 3 times a year. You can figure out what frequency to sweep the other parts of that road. That's up to you. Just keep these pictures in mind. If you've got it going into a ditch, sweep that section once a year. Anything that drains down to storm drain inlet like this 3 times a year. You do not need to buy a street sweeper. You do not need to buy a street sweeper. If you got a lot of money and you don't know what to do with it, get one. You can certainly check with the county, the state DOT, or a nearby town that has a sweeper already. See if you can arrange a shared service with them. The county is going to be sweeping roads that run through your municipality anyway, so it might be worthwhile to reach out to them and see if they can do your sweeping. You can also hire a private sweeping company if that works best for your town. Only you are going to know what's in your town, so you're going to just have to think about, what kind of sweeping we have to do and what makes sense for you. This is the form that I talked about before, where you're going to describe your sweeping program. You can have a written description, something like the one in this sample over here, or a link to an annotated map that shows which are municipal roads, which ones get swept, like illustrate somehow on the annual schedule or triannually. And also on this form, you're going to indicate if you outsource your sweeping. All right. We're going to take a short break here. I don't know if questions have been happening in the chat. We can discuss them if we need to, and stretch your legs if you'd like. I'm going to switch things over to my friend Kristen here, and she's going to pick up with the next chunk of permit conditions.
So yeah, we've been answering, most of the questions in the chat there. If anyone has any questions that they want to ask, feel free to use that, raise hand option at the top, and we can call on you and you can ask the question out loud.
So hi, this is Intia Thread of the City of Newark. I wanted to make sure that SP3 has to be submitted to the NJDEP. Is that right?
Yes, your updated SP3 should be submitted, and we'll go through later on in the presentation, the mechanism for submitting that. But yeah, it needs to be submitted.
And the stormwater management plan as well, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no more live questions, why don't we just jump into the next portion of the presentation, and then staff can continue to answer any questions in the chat that people may have as we go. So thanks, Sherry, for handing it over. I'm Kristen Jeske. I'm another one of the case managers in the MS4 permitting group. I'm the case manager for Monmouth County and Somerset County. So hello to all my permittees out there. So I'm going to be walking you through the next two sections of the presentation. We'll continue on with the rest of the permit conditions, and then I'll be also walking you through the mapping portion of the presentation later on as well. So this next portion of the presentation is going to be the same format as what Sherry just walked you through. It'll be the rest of the permit conditions. So we'll walk through, each condition, and then I'll show you the sample page from the SP3 and go over how to fill that out as well. So with that, I'm just going to turn my camera off so you can focus on the slides a bit better, and we'll get right into it. So the next permit condition is storm drain inlets. So storm drain inlet labeling is another requirement that carried over from the previous Tier A and Tier B permits. All inlets need to have an appropriate label to note that they drain to waterways. If the inlet does not have permanent wording cast into the structure itself, like the photo on the bottom here shows, you can see that permanent wording here, then please attach a button to it or use a stencil to paint on a similar message. And this picture here shows a sample button that you may choose to put on to your inlets. All municipally owned storm drain inlets must be retrofitted by the end of this permit cycle. So that would be December 31st of 2027. You do not need to replace every inlet. It's perfectly acceptable to use a bolt-on plate across the curb opening of the structure to bring old style structures into compliance, like you see here in this top picture, this bolt-on plate right here on the curb opening. If you are installing a new storm drain inlet, however, please use the new style inlet structure that complies with the NJDOT design for bicycle safety, and that's outlined in the permit. Something that's new with this permit renewal is that all new storm drain installations must include a catch basin or other BMP that's designed for solids collection directly below the inlet or downstream of the new storm drain inlet, somewhere prior to the discharge to surface water. Storm drains installed on bridges and culverts are exempt from this requirement. So now let's talk about the difference between storm drain inlets and catch basins. The storm drain inlet is the top grate that you can walk or drive over, and if it's against the curb, it includes that curbside opening as well. So we consider the inlet to be the parts that you can see on the surface. Like you see here in the picture, it would be this surface part and then this curb opening if there is one. The catch basin is the portion that's below the surface, and it's typically under the storm drain inlet, but it may sometimes be further down the conveyance pipe. They have different permit requirements and different completion schedules. You should have already established what conditions warrant cleaning and maintenance of both storm drain inlets and catch basins as per previous Tier A and Tier B permit requirements. Storm drain inlet inspections can be done by simply driving around to each inlet to check for debris and clogs to keep stormwater conveyance clear. So for this reason, we require that all storm drains are inspected every year. In most cases, a quick sweep or shovel job is all that you would need to clean the inlet. And your SP3 should include a description of the conditions that warrant storm drain inlet cleaning and maintenance, as well as the procedures for doing this. Catch basins, on the other hand, they involve a bit more work. The inspector would need to get out of the truck and look down inside below the grate to determine if the catch basin needs to be cleaned. And so for this, the requirement is to inspect a minimum of 20% of the total number of catch basins every year on rotation so that all catch basins are inspected by the end of the permit cycle. When developing a catch basin inspection and cleaning program, be sure to check the manufacturer's recommendations for BMPs related to solids and floatables. And the EPA also has guidance on catch basin cleaning, which advises removal of materials when the sump pit becomes 40% full. With the new street sweeping requirements, inlets and catch basins theoretically should require less cleaning. Moving on to MS4 conveyance inspection and cleaning. Here we are talking about your stormwater conveyance features such as pipes, man-made ditches, etc., that all convey stormwater. Earlier iterations of both the Tier A and Tier B permits required permittees to maintain all municipally owned stormwater facilities and conveyance features that fall into that category. The change to this permit condition is that we are now requiring that each town defines their program for inspections, cleaning, and maintenance required to ensure proper function of conveyance. Permittees must establish what conditions warrant cleaning and maintenance, as well as create an inspection schedule that is tailored to your system and your resources. And you'll see a new section in the 2023 updated stormwater pollution prevention plan for this condition. Outfall inspections. Each outfall must be inspected at least once every 5 years by scheduling inspections of at least 20% of the total number of outfalls per year. Newly constructed or newly identified outfalls must be inspected within 30 days of identification. The department offers outfall inspection forms on the MS4 webpage to document your findings. These inspections must include checking the overall structural integrity of the outfall, checking for clogging, as well as checking for instances of stream scouring and illicit discharges, which I'll cover in more detail on the next 2 slides. So for stream scouring, all reports of stream scouring must be inspected within 30 days, and any confirmed cases of stream scouring need to be remediated within 12 months of discovery. Scouring can present as gouging out of the stream bank, as well as undermining the outfall structure and the structure underneath and the sediment underneath the outfall. Scouring erodes soils, clogs stream beds, and can ruin habitats. So when performing inspections, be sure to note if the soil is eroding away around the outfall and if stabilization of the outfall is necessary. Again, the department has forms available on our MS4 webpage to document stream scouring cases if you choose to use those. Moving on to illicit discharge detection and elimination. When performing investigations for illicit discharges, be sure to look for instances of dry weather flow, which means a flow coming from the outfall 72 hours after a rain event. Additional indicators of an illicit discharge include foam, turbidity, colored or overly fragrant discharges, as well as the presence of sanitary waste items. Kind of like that. All reports of illicit discharges must be inspected within 30 days, and confirmed cases of illicit discharges need to be remediated within 12 months of discovery. The department has a special form on the MS4 webpage that you are required to use in order to document each case of illicit discharge that you find, and those forms would be uploaded with your annual report each year. Historically, there have been very few outfall problems that are reported to the department, yet we hear about problems with stormwater flooding and pollution all the time. So we're now working with the New Jersey Watershed Ambassador Program, as well as some watershed groups around the state, and we've put together an outfall observation form for concerned citizens to report potential cases of damaged outfalls, stream scouring, and illicit discharges. So citizens are encouraged to contact their municipality first to address these issues. This citizen science approach is a great resource to assist towns in identifying potential stormwater outfall problems. Any reports of damaged outfalls, stream scouring, or illicit discharges would be first reviewed by us here at the department, and then we would contact the municipality to address the situation if need be. Other stormwater infrastructure inspections. So far, these past couple slides, we've been talking about inspecting storm drain inlets, catch basins, conveyance systems, and outfalls. These are typically the most common types of facilities that are going to make up your municipal infrastructure. However, this condition here is a sort of catch-all condition, since it's referring to anything else that you have outside of your outside of those inlets and outfalls that I listed above. It applies to things like stormwater management basins and manufactured treatment devices and et cetera. So for each type of facility in this category, you would define the conditions that warrant cleaning and maintenance to allow for proper function. Follow any approved maintenance plans, or if plans don't exist, you can create one by following the department's Best Management Practice Manual or BMP manual if there's no other guidance available. If there's no approved maintenance plan or the feature in question is not listed in our BMP manual, then you would be required to conduct inspections at least 4 times a year and after each rainfall that exceeds 1 inch of total rainfall. If stormwater facilities are found to not be properly functioning and maintenance and repairs are needed, they would need to be completed as soon as possible, but no later than 90 days from discovery of the issue. Again, please refer to the department's BMP manual for guidance. And if you need any help, you can contact your MS4 case manager, and we could put you in contact with our stormwater engineering group that would be able to point you in the right direction. So the previous slides all discussed stormwater infrastructure that's owned or operated by the permittee, so the town. But this condition here is for privately owned stormwater facilities. As the SPC, you must ensure that all privately owned facilities are operational and that cleaning and maintenance is performed as per approved maintenance plans. And this was also required in previous Tier A and Tier B permits. The private owner or operator is responsible for providing documentation to the municipality that the stormwater facilities on their property are inspected annually and maintained according to approved maintenance plans. And you can implement this condition however it works best for your town. Some towns choose to, have those private owners submit forms each year to confirm that the conditions are met, and other municipalities may choose to charge fees to perform those inspections of the private facilities themselves. So however it works best in your town, please implement this condition that way. The department is currently developing infrastructure inspection forms that may assist with inspections of private and public infrastructure. And once those are final, like Sherry mentioned before, we'll always post things on our website, and we will likely do an email blast to all of our SPCs as well. You need to keep an inventory of the locations and types of private stormwater facilities, as well as records of cleaning and of inspections, cleaning, maintenance, and repair work. And any problems and enforcement actions that you've taken. The location and type of these private facilities will also need to be included in the map that you create for your watershed improvement plan, which we're going to cover in more detail later on in the presentation. So as promised, here's a screenshot of the sample SP3 form that goes along with all the conditions I've discussed. This is Form 7 for MS4 infrastructure. So this is the form where you're going to describe your program for inlet labeling, retrofitting, and new inlet installations and inspections. And then you'll also describe your program for inspecting and maintaining catch basins, stormwater conveyance, outfalls. This is a longer form, so here's the remaining portion of it, as well as other infrastructure that you already have it listed. And this form is where you're describing how you ensure that privately owned stormwater facilities are being inspected and properly maintained as well. And then the final question on Form 7 just asks you to indicate where you keep records that are related to stormwater infrastructure inspections, cleaning, maintenance, and repair. Okay, moving on to herbicide application management. The SPC must ensure that municipal staff properly apply herbicides to prevent them from being washed into waterways and to minimize erosion caused by devegetation. So this means not applying herbicides on or adjacent to storm drain inlets or on steep slopes. Herbicides must only be applied in areas where it's unsafe to mow, and be sure to keep the spray around structures within a 2-foot radius, and only apply herbicides along curb lines and unobstructed shoulders. The next requirement is excess de-icing material management. This requirement is aimed at cleaning up leftover salt piles that are sometimes left when the driver starts up or stops the spreader. Road salt contributes to increased salinity in freshwater bodies, which can cause degradation of the habitat that's necessary to support aquatic life, such as trout. And salt piles must be cleaned up within 72 hours of the storm once the conditions are safe. Roadside vegetative waste management. Grass, leaves, and tree trimmings that find their way into the MS4 have the potential to clog the conveyance and increase nutrients and levels of total suspended solids in the receiving waters, which can be harmful and result in harmful algal blooms. So this requirement is intended to ensure that appropriate management of materials that are generated by municipal staff when mowing, trimming trees, or chipping wood along municipal roads or on municipal properties. So be sure that your staff are not blowing grass or leaves into the street or down the storm drain or into ditches. Next up is roadside erosion control. Roadside erosion can cause sedimentation of receiving waters and stormwater infrastructure and can pose a public safety concern. For this reason, erosion inspections are required along municipal roads. We've received complaints about ongoing roadside erosion in various towns throughout the state. In fact, the picture that you see here on the slide on the left, it's not a stock photo. It's from one of our enforcement officers who was out investigating an erosion complaint. So this is a good example of why we have this condition in the permit. Erosion checks can be done while performing other stormwater inspections as well. If problems are identified, the department allows 3 months to address it unless another time frame is authorized. So here's a screenshot of Form 8 from our sample SP3. And this is where you're going to describe your program for maintaining herbicide application, cleanup of excess de-icing materials, as well as the handling of roadside vegetative waste, and your program for controlling roadside erosion. The next up is all of the BMPs at the maintenance yards and other ancillary operations. This is a bit of a long section, so please hang in there. But as the SPC, you are responsible for making sure that operations are being conducted in compliance with the MS4 permit at all maintenance yards and ancillary operations, and that all the required BMPs are being implemented. So this applies to all municipally owned or operated yards for maintenance and outdoor storage of vehicles, equipment, and supplies. Ancillary operations include places like fleet or maintenance shops with outdoor storage areas, as well as impound yards, permanent and mobile fueling locations, salt and sand storage locations, and snow disposal areas. These can also include sites where you allow your town residents to drop off trash, recycling, or yard waste. Okay, so as I mentioned, there's specific BMPs that must be implemented at each maintenance yard and ancillary operation. So let's walk through them now. So first up is site inspections. Usually the DPW supervisor or designee or some other designee will inspect each yard. You would note the conditions of the yard and ensure that any necessary improvements are addressed and documented. Next, inventory list. Be sure to keep a list of all materials and machinery that are exposed to stormwater, since they are all a potential source of pollutants. Container labels, this one's pretty straightforward. Be sure that all containers at the yard are labeled and make sure that the labels are clean and visible and easy to read. Spill kits. Keep a spill kit near any liquid transfer areas and make sure it is protected from the elements. Be sure to only use dry method cleanup, for example, kitty litter or sawdust, and then sweep it up for proper disposal after the spill is cleaned. Bulk liquids. Bulk liquids, if they're stored at the maintenance yard, it'll often be something like fuel, oil, or liquid de-icers in above ground tanks. So if you have any of these, be sure to surround those tanks with a secondary containment barrier, such as a spill containment dike, in order to prevent drips and spillage from getting out that might happen during operations. Next up, for fueling and other bulk liquid transfers. During these operations, be sure to use drip pans below hose and pipe connections and block any nearby storm drains. If any repairs or replacement are needed, don't delay, and also post signs prominently in the fueling station to include the following language. Topping off vehicles, mobile fuel tanks, and storage tanks is strictly prohibited. Stay in view of the fueling nozzle during dispensing, and in event of a spill, contact, and then you would insert the name and phone number of the responsible party. This language is all outlined in the permit, And we also have a sign template that's available on our MS4 webpage that has this language in it. And you can copy that and post it at your site if you would like. Next up is discharge from secondary containment. When you empty the stormwater from the collection area surrounding the tank, be sure to dispose of it properly. If you've determined that it's clean, you can open the valve and let the stormwater flow out. However, if it's a case where the secondary containment water appears contaminated, or if you're not sure, then haul it off site for proper disposal. If the contents inside the tank are clear, you might not be able to determine if any of the material got mixed with the stormwater. So in that case, it would be safe to assume that it's contaminated and haul it off site for proper disposal. Next up is vehicle or equipment maintenance and repair. If you can, perform these activities indoors whenever possible. However, if you must work outdoors, use portable tents and drip pans and work in areas far from storm drain inlets if possible, or block any nearby storm drain inlets. Wash wastewater containment. The wastewater tanks need to be certified each year by a New Jersey licensed engineer. Underground tanks and pipes must be checked for leaks every 3 years, and the visible portions should be checked before every use. Check the capacity and pump out prior to reaching 95% tank capacity, and stop use immediately if repairs are needed. Report any spills immediately to the NJDEP hotline and properly dispose of all pump out water. Salt and other granular de-icing materials. These materials must be stored in a permanent structure and in a way that minimizes exposure to rain, snow, and stormwater runoff. If you don't have a door on the structure, that's okay. Just be sure to keep the materials from overflowing beyond the protection of the storage structure. And be sure to sweep up any tracked or spilled materials after loading and unloading events. Next up is aggregate material, wood chips, and finished leaf compost. Store these materials at least 50 feet from surface water bodies, storm sewer inlets, ditches, and other stormwater conveyance channels. Use 3-sided storage bays, dikes, berms, hay bales, sandbags, and/or grading in order to minimize stormwater run-on and run-off. Storing these materials is fine, but if your town processes compost or does any sort of chipping, grinding, screening, or size reducing of wood waste or yard trimmings, then you'll need an industrial stormwater permit for these activities. Again, finished materials can be stored indefinitely on site, but if you're doing any sort of processing, you need a separate permit, and I'll go over that permit in a little bit. Cold patch asphalt. This material must be stored indoors or stored on an impervious surface and covered with a waterproof material and contained to prevent materials from contaminating stormwater. Street sweeping and storm sewer cleanouts. Keep these materials in a leak-proof container or stored on an impervious surface and covered with a waterproof material and contained to prevent the materials from contaminating stormwater. Materials may not be stored longer than 6 months, or the town would need to apply for a solid waste permit. And this is the last slide here for maintenance yard BMPs, so hang in there. Construction and demolition waste, wood waste, and yard trimmings. Store these materials at least 50 feet from surface water bodies, storm drain inlets, ditches, and other stormwater conveyance channels. Again, you can use 3-sided storage bays, dikes, berms, hay bales, sandbags, and/or grading to minimize stormwater run-on and run-off. And again, if your town processes compost or does chipping, grinding, screening, or size reducing of wood waste or yard trimmings, you'll need that industrial stormwater permit that I mentioned for these activities. And if you want to store these materials for longer than 6 months, you must apply for a solid waste permit. Scrap tires, this one's pretty straightforward. Tires must be stored in a covered container or enclosed to prevent exposure to stormwater. Inoperable vehicles or equipment, use tents, covers, and drip pans under leaking vehicles and check them during monthly site inspections. And finally, refuse containers or dumpsters. Again, this one's pretty straightforward. All trash containers and dumpsters on site must be covered when they're not in use. Okay, so as I briefly mentioned on the previous slide, the storage of any finished leaf compost is still covered under the Tier A permit. However, all composting, including chipping, grinding, screening, or size reducing activities, even if it's just once a year, are no longer covered under the Tier A permit, and they require a separate industrial stormwater permit. Again, the storage of materials on site is fine, but any composting activity requires this new industrial stormwater permit. So we've issued this new wood waste recycling and leaf composting general permit effective as of January 1st of this year. And it should be adequate to cover the activities for most towns. If you're performing any of these activities in your town, please reach out to us. If we haven't done so already, the case managers have been reaching out to sites that we know of in order to get you guys the correct application and get this permit up and running for you. But if we haven't reached out to you and you do have this sort of operation going on, then please reach out to us and we can determine if your facility is eligible for coverage under this WRC permit, or if it requires another individual industrial stormwater permit. Okay, so here's Form 9 of the SP3. This one is special because you need to fill out one for each municipal yard or ancillary site that you own or operate. So this sample here shows how to fill it out for, say, a primary maintenance yard. You'll see the sample address here. You would list a description of the monthly site inspections, a list of inventory, and a description of how each applicable material or piece of equipment is managed. And then here's the rest of the Form 9. Again, it just goes through all those BMPs that I walked you through. So you would just write out how your town is implementing those BMPs at that specific yard. And then here's how you'd fill out a second Form 9. For example, we filled this one out as if it was just a site that's being used to store road salt. So, you'll see here that on this example, a lot of the questions have NA filled out because, things wouldn't apply if it's only a salt storage yard. So that's fine if that's a case that you have. Just make sure that you have one individual Form 9 for each yard. If you have 3 separate yards, you need 3 Form 9s in your SP3. Okay, moving along to training requirements. As the SPC, you are responsible for making sure that everyone is getting the right training at the right time. You're also responsible for making sure that training records are kept to demonstrate compliance with the training requirements of the permit. So let's go through each of the different types of the training that's required by the permit. First up is Stormwater Program Coordinator training. Yes, you are here. This is the training that you're in right now. So we've developed this training, as Sherry mentioned briefly in the very beginning, to make sure that the permit is interpreted and implemented correctly and consistently throughout the state. All SPCs are required to attend this training once every permit cycle, so about every 5 years. You are welcome to attend this training more frequently if you would like a refresher, and you can also invite other staff who work in the stormwater program in your town who want to attend, as many of you know, as you've included others in these past 2 training sessions. During training sessions, we will be monitoring attendance. Again, we mentioned all of this in the beginning, but just as a refresher, we're keeping records to make sure that the SPC for every town has been trained. If you change jobs or retire, someone at your municipality would need to let us know who's going to be your replacement within 30 days. And then your replacement must attend the next available live session. Again, we plan to hold these trainings at least twice a year. And we suggest that new SPCs watch the training that's recorded and posted on our website to hold them over until the next available live session. Municipal employee training. The SPC is responsible for conducting or coordinating annual training for municipal staff, including contractors, on their stormwater-related job duties. New staff must receive training within 3 months of the commencement of duties and then annually after that. Not everybody needs to be trained on every single topic. Just make sure that the people who are doing the work related to that specific topic are getting the appropriate training. The only topic for training that would likely apply to everyone is a review of the most current SP3. We know that towns don't really have a specific training department, so a discussion of these topics would be conducted every year and led by the most knowledgeable person that you have on each topic. So for example, street sweeping training may be conducted by the DPW director. If you have a code enforcement officer, that might be the person who's going to cover the ordinance training. This can be done in a group setting or one-on-one, in the field or in the office, or on a computer, however works best for your town and your staff. The SPC is ultimately, again, just responsible for ensuring that all required training is held and all appropriate records are kept in accordance with the permit. The department is working with the New Jersey Municipal Environmental Risk Management Fund to update a set of short videos to help with municipal employee training. And the topics of those videos include an overview of the MS4 permit, public education and outreach, SP3 development, and DPW operations. And you can find those videos at the link here on the slide on our website. Okay, next up is Stormwater Management Design Reviewer Training. So this is the SWMDR course that Sherry mentioned briefly earlier on. As the SPC, you must ensure that those engineers who review and approve designs for major development projects on behalf of the municipality attend the department's Stormwater Management Design Reviewer Training, SWMDR. So the purpose of this training is to ensure that projects are designed in accordance with the stormwater management rules, and so that once a project has been constructed, there's minimal impact on stormwater quality and runoff quantity or flooding. So this is a technical course that covers the most current stormwater management rules, municipal stormwater management plans, stormwater control ordinances, mitigation plans, as well as the department's BMP manual. This course is approximately 12 hours in length, and it's broken up over 4 half-day sessions, and it's required every 5 years. The department has a list of past course attendees and certification dates, so you can check the status of your municipal engineers on our website. If there is an amendment to the stormwater management rules, additional training may be required. If the department determines that training sessions are necessary, then engineers must attend within 12 months of the adoption of any rule amendments. Rule amendment training sessions will be announced by the department on the website and via email to all SPCs and to engineers who have attended previous SWMDR courses. If you have attended SWMDR and your email address changes, please let us know. So again, that rule amendment training, we just had one last week for the new inland flood protection rule, if any of you are familiar with that or attended. Okay, the last form of training is for municipal board and governing body members. So members of planning boards, zoning boards, and town councils who review applications for major development projects are required to be trained on an overview of the stormwater management rules. The department provides a set of brief videos that give a high-level description of the key considerations that one should make when reviewing a project. The content and the time commitment is nowhere near as extensive as the SWMDR course. The video that they watch when they first take office is about 45 minutes long. And then once per term after that, there's another set of videos that they can choose to watch that range in length anywhere from 4 to 12 minutes. We hope to refresh these videos, but for now, if you have people in office for lengthy terms, just please have them rewatch one of the videos that's posted online, even if they've seen it before. So that initial video, the asking the right questions video, is posted here at this link. And then that other set of videos that you can watch after having been in office for a year are listed at this, this link here. Okay, Form 10, this is the form for describing all of your training. So again, this is where you're going to describe the different types of training for the various members of the stormwater team. There's a section in the beginning for stormwater program coordinators. Then there's a set of topics here for all of the topics that are related to municipal employees that get trained annually. And then there's a section for the stormwater management design reviewers and a section for the municipal board and governing body members. And then at the very end, you'll just note the, where you keep your training records. Okay, going a little bit out of order from the permit conditions here, we're just going to jump to the very end of the permit for right now and then get back to some of those more in-depth conditions in their own sections. So here is a slide on additional and optional measures. The department will notify you if there's an additional permit requirement that your town is required to adopt. This does not happen often, but such cases would result in minor modifications to the master general permit and would require the permittee to meet either numeric effluent limitations or implement new or enhanced best management practices. For optional measures, you are allowed to adopt and enforce any other measure to your town's program that exceeds the requirements of the permit. For example, you might have an ordinance that requires all dumpsters on private properties to be covered. Something like that would be considered an optional measure. Or you may have a problem that's unique to your town that as it relates to stormwater, and you may choose to implement an optional measure to address that. And then record keeping. So when the DEP or the EPA staff come out for an audit or a site inspection, they'll be looking at all of your records that demonstrate compliance with each permit condition. Your job as the SPC is to have these records ready upon request. So be sure to keep copies of logs that record inspections, repairs, investigations, etc. All records related to permit compliance, be sure to keep those on site for at least 5 years. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the permit conditions. So we're going to just take another short little break here. Again, stretch your legs, use the restroom, and we have a few minutes to take some live questions as well. So if anybody has any live questions, please raise your hand, and then the moderator will call on you.
Hi, this is Inti from City of Newark. I have a question. The stormwater ordinance was revised based on, I think, 2020, 2021 amendments, and it was sent to the the county for approval. And then there are a few more amendments recently by NJDEP. So do we have to send it back again, adopt it and change, modify the stormwater ordinance and send it to the county for reapproval?
So this is Nancy Kemple. So the answer to that question is yes. There were amendments that were just adopted again to the stormwater management rules on July 17th of this of this year. So you have 1 year from the date of the adoption of those rules to revise your stormwater control ordinance in accordance with those amendments. So in following with those amendments, we also updated our model ordinances and we posted them on the webpage. We have the full text version that has the same level of detail as the previous model SCOs, but we also created a shorter version, I'll call it streamlined version, that I think we mentioned earlier in the presentation, that simply refers to the subchapters in the stormwater management rules at 7:8, so that if there are changes to those rules in the future in those subchapters, then you would not need to update your stormwater control ordinances again. However, there could be other changes that would require an actual modification to your SCO. There's also the opportunity for the towns to adopt sort of a hybrid if you wanted to have more stringent requirements or more detailed requirements in a portion of your SCO. You could do that in that section and then simply refer to the other sections of the stormwater management rules. In that case, so the deadline to update the current stormwater control ordinances is now July 17th of next year, 2024. Except for Pinelands towns where they have to wait for the Pinelands Commission to update their regulations and where they house their stormwater control ordinance for Pinelands areas as well. So that would apply for those Pinelands towns when the whole town is included in the Pinelands area, and for the Pinelands areas of those towns.
Thank you very much.
Sure. So I see another question here. When is the next stormwater management design review course or SWIMDR course scheduled? We have not settled on a date for that, but it's usually scheduled in October or November each year for the fall session. As soon as we get that, we usually send out emails to the stormwater program coordinators and the engineers that we have on record, and we post the dates on our website, but we should be figuring that out, I would say, in the next couple weeks.
Okay, if there's no more live questions, I think we'll just jump into the next portion of the presentation to keep on time here. And then again, staff can answer questions in the chat as we go along as well. But let's move into the next portion of the presentation. Hope you all got a chance to stretch your legs. All right, so as promised, we're going to walk through mapping. So original TRA permittees should have already mapped their stormwater outfall pipes and will now need to add the rest of their infrastructure. Mapping is an entirely new condition for the new TRA towns, however. So this means mapping everything that collects, treats, or conveys stormwater, and this includes outfalls, groundwater discharge points, interconnections, storm drain inlets, manholes, stormwater conveyance systems, pump stations, and any other stormwater facilities that you may have around your town. And you're also required to map the property boundaries of maintenance yards and other ancillary operations. Permittees must submit the MS4 infrastructure map electronically to the department by January 1st of 2026. So that's effective date of permit plus 3 years. Electronically does not mean a PDF sent via email. Rather, it means submitting georeferenced shapefiles, geodatabases, or AutoCAD files. The department has a free mapping tool and can also provide ArcGIS online licenses for free. If you do use the DEP mapping tool, then your data submittal is automatic, so you would not need to submit any files. It just goes through automatically through the app the tool, excuse me. But if you do not use the department's tool, then you would upload any of your files via NJDEP Online, which we're going to walk through later on in the presentation. The infrastructure map must be reviewed annually or more frequently as necessary, and it needs to be updated to include the location or attributes of any new or newly identified MS4 infrastructure. The map must also be posted on your dedicated stormwater webpage when it's complete. A map in PDF format will suffice this requirement, but we've also seen some towns include a link to an interactive stormwater map on their website as well. And then here's a screenshot of Form 11 from the SP3. So this is where you're going to provide all of the mapping information. So the first question asks you to just post a link to the most current version of your outfall map on your stormwater webpage. If you're an original Tier A town, this is going to start off as just an outfall pipe map. But then by January 1st of 2026, as I mentioned, all municipalities will need to have their entire stormwater infrastructure system mapped and posted on their dedicated stormwater webpage. Excuse me. On this form, you'll also provide a count of the different types of the stormwater facilities that make up your infrastructure. And then you'll describe how your current map is reviewed and updated when new infrastructure is added. That's question number 3 here. But if you don't currently have a map, you would just write NA and you can move to question 4, where you're going to describe how you'll create and update your full infrastructure map. Okay, so that was just an overview of the mapping permit requirements. So now that I've gone through that, I'm going to get into how the department is providing free mapping assistance to permittees and all the available options we have for you. So whoever completes the MS4 mapping for your municipality, excuse me, tripping over my words here, should be aware of the available options that the department offers. So each method that I'm about to show you will satisfy your electronic submission requirement as per the permit. The department previously created a geodatabase template and associated data dictionary for 7 stormwater feature classes, which included the required outfall pipe maps for the 2018 Tier A permit. This has recently been updated and modified to account for all the new stormwater facilities that are required to be mapped for the 2023 permit. Not every permittee operates in the same manner or has the same technological capabilities, so the geodatabase template was made available over a number of different collection methodologies to suit the needs of all of our permittees. This includes a template for ArcGIS Online that can be downloaded for desktop computers or smartphones and tablets. Users can also download our Esri geodatabase template if you have previous ArcMap or ArcPro experience. And then we also have a template that's provided in Excel format on our website as well. So I'm going to go through each collection methodology here in more detail in later slides. In the previous permit, towns were only required to map outfall pipes. So these other feature classes that you see here on the slide were created as optional features for your municipalities to use at the time. If you are one of the municipalities that have already mapped some of their feature classes, and we do have a good portion of municipalities who have done so, we will migrate all of your data over to match the new feature classes. So that way, none of the work that you've done previously or the data that you collected will be lost in the shuffle. After the recent updates, the tool currently captures MS4 outfalls, and then the required attributes that we need from you are listed here in parentheses on the slide and in the permit as well. So for outfalls, we need you to include the receiving surface water name and the type of outfall, such as pipe, open channel, or other. Next is MS4 conveyance. The attributes here would be the type of conveyance. So is it a ditch, a swale, a culvert? As well as the direction of flow for each length of conveyance. And this is going to be submitted as a linear feature to us. Then we have storm drain inlets. You're going to tell us the type, whether you have a catch basin and a label present, and if the inlet has been retrofitted. Those are the attributes there for inlets. MS4 groundwater discharge points. Each one should include the type, such as infiltration basin, overland flow that doesn't reach surface water, etc. So just type is the attribute we're looking for there. And then MS4 interconnections. The attributes here that we're looking for are the type, into and from, and what entity is mingling with the municipalities. So for example, does your system flow into DOTs, or does DOT flow into yours, et cetera, et cetera. There could be a bunch of different situations there. And the tool also captures MS4 manholes, culverts. This is an optional feature class for any municipality that wants to include them in their mapping inventory. Again, it's not required by the permit, just optional. So feel free to use that if you do have a lot of culverts around your municipality. Stormwater facilities. So the attribute that we're looking for here at a minimum is the type. So this would include anything from green infrastructure to a stormwater management basin, an MTD, or any other part of MS4 that that collects, treats, or conveys stormwater, and it doesn't have a its own labeled feature class. MS4 pump stations. And then finally, we're also looking for property boundaries of maintenance yards and other ancillary operations. And the attribute that we're looking for there is type. So you would just tell us, you know, it's just a generic maintenance yard, it's a sand storage or salt storage area, things like that. And the property boundaries, we're looking for that as a polygon layer. Okay, so the first method that was created was a mapping tool using ArcGIS Online. This program allows you to collect points and associated information on a smartphone, tablet, or computer. The department secured a pool of free-to-use licenses for our permittees, and they're available upon request. Data that's stored in our database can be viewed publicly and downloaded at any time later, as I'm going to discuss in some future slides. The desktop version of ArcGIS is a great way to digitize points electronically from the comfort of your office using, say, an old PDF map or tax map for reference. So let's do a brief demonstration of how you digitize points in ArcGIS Online. Okay, so the first step would be to navigate to ArcGIS Online from your desktop. So you would just do a simple Google search for ArcGIS Online, and this is what the page would look like when you launch ArcGIS Online. So you would click sign in, and then you'll sign in using the username and password that was assigned to you when you were given a license from the department. Okay, next you would access the Groups tab once you've signed in. So the Groups tab is up here. And I'll just apologize in advance if any of these screenshots are a little bit tricky to see. I'm going to be using these red boxes and arrows to try to highlight some important features on the screenshots. So this Group tab here is where you'll be able to view and make edits to the infrastructure map. So you'll click on the NJDEP Municipal Stormwater Mapping content here, which will appear after you're in the Groups tab. And this is how you access the MS4 infrastructure editing map. So once you click on this mapping content link, you will be brought to a screen that looks like this. And you'll find the MS4 infrastructure editing map here. This screen will show you some other maps if you have them available to you, but you might only have this MS4 infrastructure map available, and that's okay. That's the one you're working with. So when you click on that link, the main page of the map will open up, and it's going to look like this. And this is where you'll see details along with other important information regarding the map. So to start an editing session, you'll open the map by clicking on the Open in Map Viewer button here, this blue button on the right-hand side of the screen. And then once you click that, you'll be opened up to a map. So you can use the search function here using this magnifying glass at the bottom of the screen here to search for your current location. Or you can use the search bar up here to search for your current address. You could also just zoom in and out on the map itself if you don't like to search for a location that way. And again, there's that search button. So once you execute that search function, it's going to zoom you right into that location on the map. So this button up top here that looks like a stack of squares, this is the button that shows you the different layers that are currently on the map for viewing. So it's your kind of legend, if you will. And then you've got this button here that looks like 4 squares on the left-hand side. This is where you would click if you wanted to change the base map on your map. So typically an imagery-based map is going to be the most helpful, especially if you're plotting points using a tax map or knowledge from previous visits. This imagery layer will really help you to hone in on those features that you're trying to map. So the map is interactive. If you see a point that's already marked and you're interested in viewing it, you can click on that point, and then this text box will appear with all the associated attributes for that point. And if you end up plotting a point in the wrong area or during your annual review of the map, you find that you need to update something, you would click this edit button down in the left-hand corner of that attribute box. And that's where you'd be able to make edits to points that you've already plotted. So once you click on the edit box, the edit feature in the box, you'll get this pop up on the right-hand side here. And here's where you would edit all the different attributes for that point. So, you know, the county, municipality, discharge code, etc. But if you're trying to plot a new point, you'll click on the edit button on the toolbar on the right here. This little button, third one from the bottom. So once you click that edit button, you'll need to scroll until you find the correct stormwater facility type and the correct county. So for example, if you're trying to plot an outfall point within Burlington County, you would click right here. Again, I know it's really hard to see. I apologize. Currently, the tool has feature classes for culverts, basins, outfalls, inlets, etc. And the icons are different from each. So I'll show you just a zoomed in screenshot of what some of these features look like when they're plotted. And these are the features you'll probably use most often. So first you got outfalls. When they're depicted on the map, they're this beige yellow circle with an O inside. Then you have inlets, which are marked as a gray circle with an I inside. And you'll also see basins, which are a red circle with a B inside. Since we've been updating the tool, these may change as the tool updates are finalized. So next you'll fill out all known attributes for the designated point in the box here that appears on the right. So this is going to include discharge code, facility name, and any other attributes that you would have. Most of these attributes will have a drop-down box, so it's easier than typing out these attributes manually, especially if you're out in the field. Once you've finished adding all the attributes, you'd click this create button down here, this blue button. If something's incorrect before you hit create, you're able to discard your edits by hitting the back button here at the top. If you realize after you hit create that there's an error in the point or attributes, you're able to go back and edit like I showed you on that previous slide. So you would, click on that point and you would use that edit button in that box that appears to make edits to a point that you've already plotted. Permittees are unable to delete points using ArcGIS Online, and this helps to avoid accidentally deleting data or, say deleting data for maybe a different permittee. If you do have something that needs to be deleted, you can mark it for deletion in the comments. You could just edit that point and just in that comments box at the bottom, you could just say, NJDEP, please delete, something like that. So we know that, there's an error with that point and we can delete it for you on our end. And so after all that, you can see that that point has been successfully plotted here on our map. And you would repeat this process as many times as necessary for all the stormwater facilities and infrastructure that you need to map. So that was ArcGIS Online. There's also an app for collecting points through ArcGIS Online on a mobile device, and that app is called ArcGIS Field Maps. You can access it through both the Google Play Store or the Apple Store as well. So again, you could just do a quick search for field maps or Esri field maps, and it's going to be this first app that pops up for you. Some of you may know the previous version of this app. It was called Collector, but Esri has since transitioned to using this new Field Maps app. The app itself is free to download and use, and once you have a license from the department, you can begin mapping. This method is the best way to collect new data points directly out in the field. So once you've downloaded the app, the user can collect points by using the mobile device's GPS or by manually placing points on an aerial background. When a point is placed, a list of descriptive attributes will show up and can be filled out. And this helps in determining things such as the type of basin or MTD and the ownership of the facility, which is important when you're conducting maintenance. Again, most fields have drop-down menus that make it easy to fill out and less time-consuming than typing out each attribute in the field. So let's do a quick walkthrough of how to plot a point in the Field Maps app. Okay, so first you would download that app as I showed you, search for it in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. Once you open the Field Maps app, you'll be prompted with 2 sign-in options. So you're going to click this first one here, sign in with ArcGIS Online. And then you'll use the username and password that's assigned to you with your department provided license. Again, sorry if the screenshots are a little tough to see. I'm going to be using these boxes and arrows again to highlight important things for you. So once you're signed in, you'll see a list of all maps that you have access to, which may only be the MS4 infrastructure editing map. Again, if that's the only map you have access to, that's fine. You're golden. That's the one that you're going to want to use, the MS4 infrastructure editing map. So Field Maps uses the mobile device's GPS to position you and allow you to plot data. At the top of the screen here, you'll see the GPS accuracy. It'll list it out for you. You need an accuracy of at least 30 feet to plot a point, but the smaller the number gets, the more accuracy you have when plotting points. And you can zoom in or out on the map to change the GPS accuracy. This little crosshair button up top in the top right here is just a button that will orient you to north if you'd like to do that. This button here that looks like a stack of squares is again similar to ArcGIS Online. It's that button that shows you the different layers that are currently on the map for viewing. So again, it's sort of like a legend. Again, you can use the search function at the top of the screen here, the little magnifying glass, to find your current location, or you can zoom in on the map to find your current location. But if you do use that search function, it'll zoom you right into that location on your map again. So if you click the 3 dots here on the top right-hand corner, you can use that to change the base map on the map. Again, typically an imagery layer is going to be the most helpful, but whatever you choose to use is fine. This screenshot here shows just a light gray canvas background, for example. So in order to plot a data point, you're going to click this blue button down here at the right-hand bottom corner. And this will bring you to the different feature class options for the various types of stormwater infrastructure, such as basins, outfalls, or inlets. You need to scroll until you find the correct stormwater facility type and then the correct county. So you can get to the feature classes by scrolling down on the map, like on the screen, or you can search. There's a filter button here. So if you filter, it'll help you navigate to that more quickly. So I know that's a bit confusing. I'm not sure if I explained it well enough with the ArcGIS Online, so my apologies. I'll explain it here. Everything's listed by infrastructure. So again, I know it's hard to see, but you'll see there's a line that'll say basins, and then underneath that, it'll have each different county. If you continue scrolling, it'll be, outfalls will come up next, then inlets. So you're going to be first looking for that type of infrastructure that you're trying to map, and then you'll click the corresponding county. So once you click the appropriate feature class, the app will bring up a circle with crosshairs here, and you can drag that around to plot the point on the accurate location on the base map. Once you're satisfied with the location of that point, you'll click the Update Point button, which is this blue button here. And then you'll see the corresponding point has been added to the map, and the symbology would match the feature class. So for example, like I mentioned earlier, if you plotted an inlet, then you're going to see a gray circle pop up with an I in the middle. And if you plotted an outfall, you're going to see a beige circle with an O in the middle. Then you'll scroll through and fill out the appropriate attributes. So you'll click on an attribute to start. So you click in that box there, and you start filling out the attributes. And the app is going to generate a drop-down menu for you, like I mentioned earlier, which makes the tool much easier to use and quicker in the field rather than typing it out manually. So again, so it looks like here we're trying to fill out owner type. So you'd click in that box and it's going to bring up a whole list for you here. You got county, government, municipality, etc. So you would just choose the correct attribute from that drop-down list. And when you filled out all of the required attributes, or some not required ones, if you have additional ones that you want to put in there, you can do that as well. Once you're done filling out all your attributes, you would click this checkbox, this check button in the upper right-hand corner. And way to go, you've plotted your first point. If you need to make changes to your point after it's been plotted, you can use the pencil button in the lower left-hand corner here. Or you can also, like I showed earlier, click on that point and it'll bring you an editing session. To plot your next point, you would simply click the blue plus button here and follow those same steps for as many pieces of infrastructure as you have to map. These screenshots that you saw on this slide and all the previous slides are from an Android device. So just note that the interface may vary slightly if you're working on an Apple device versus an Android device. Some of the buttons might look slightly different, but the locations of the buttons and the functionality will all be the same. Okay, so that's ArcGIS Online and field maps. And then we have our geodatabase. So for users who are already familiar with ArcMap or ArcPro, we developed a geodatabase that can be downloaded from our website. The geodatabase can be populated on the computer and then submitted back to the department to meet the mapping requirements. Again, everything here in the geodatabase template has drop-down menus, so it makes it more simple to use. While the other options provide automatic electronic submission, you will need to upload your geodatabase files via NJDEP Online to suffice the electronic submission requirement in the permit. And then the final method that we have available for download from our website is a Microsoft Excel template. This template is populated with those same fields and drop-downs as the other templates. However, we would need you to include point coordinates, so either latitude and longitude or X and Y coordinates. You would have to manually enter those into the spreadsheet before submittal. Again, while those other two options, ArcGIS Online and Field Maps, provide automatic electronic submission, if you use the Excel spreadsheet, you have to upload your files via NJDEP Online in order to satisfy that electronic submission requirement in the permit. As the department receives our permittee stormwater infrastructure data, we're making it available to all permittees and the public in a public-facing layer that's managed by our Bureau of GIS via NJDEP Open Data and NJ GeoWeb. Stormwater infrastructure data points that have been submitted to the department are given a preliminary review for quality control and are then posted to the NJDEP Open Data website for viewing and download. If you're unfamiliar with the site, you can do a simple browser search for NJDEP Online and it'll take you right to the site there. From there, you can search for and download data that's made public by the department. And as we continue to review submitted data and receive new submissions, we continually post data to this site. If for some reason you notice errors in the data that you've submitted by reviewing it on the open data site, then please reach out to your case manager and we can work together to get that data corrected. NJDEP Open Data is the best way for users to download data that was previously submitted to the department. NJ GeoWeb, that shows the same submitted data as NJDEP Open Data, but in a more user-friendly and interactive way. NJ GeoWeb is the best way to view MS4 data alongside other public-facing data that the department offers, such as streams layers and a TMDL layer. Again, if you're unfamiliar with the NJ Geo website, you can do a simple browser search and it'll be that first link that pops up. This is what the app looks like after you click the button to launch it. And then you can also click the X button on this About tab and it'll give you more space to work with the interactive map. You can find tons of different data sets on here, such as TMDLs, impairments, streams and surface water bodies, stream classifications, impervious surface data, etc. So not just MS4 data. There's other data available on GeoWeb and NJDEP Open Data. So in summary, NJDEP initially created a database and data dictionary for the stormwater infrastructure features required to be mapped by MS4 permittees. It's currently being updated to account for new mapping requirements in the 2023 permit. The data dictionary was made available over a number of different collection methodologies to suit the needs of all of our permittees. Existing data can be accessed via NJDEP Open Data or NJGeoWeb. And then last, the department is willing to provide assistance in the form of in-person training or by answering any questions that you have. So please reach out to any of us if you need assistance along the way. All right, we're going to take another short break here. We're going to turn it over to our last presenter for the day, but again, we'll take a short break. Again, stretch your legs, use the bathroom, and we can answer some questions. Okay, thanks.
All right, everyone, that's been about 5 minutes. Let's get started on the final leg of the presentation. My name is Christina Crivo. I also work with Sherry Kristen here in the Municipal Stormwater Permitting Unit. All right, so we're going to start with the Watershed Improvement Plan. There are many water quality impairments and resulting TMDLs that affect waters in every town across the state. Some of these impairments affect fish and aquatic biota, drinking water intakes that supply the water we drink, and rivers and coastal waters where many of us swim. Every summer, more and more lakes are found to have harmful algal blooms, or also known as HABs, as a result of poor water quality. Some of these waters have no other discharges into them other than stormwater runoff. So the department is requiring that stormwater permittees develop a watershed improvement plan, or we also call them WIPs, to identify water quality and quantity problems affecting their waters and to determine what improvements can be made to reduce their contribution. We do recognize that some sources of pollution and flooding are beyond your jurisdiction, such as farmland or county, state, federal properties, but this exercise will help identify those sources. So here you can see a map depicting the TMDLs and impairments in waters across New Jersey by HUC 14s, or also known as subwatersheds. The yellow area represents water quality impairments for which TMDLs have been developed. Blue areas are represented by areas that have water quality impairments, but TMDLs have not yet been developed. And then since these layers are transparent, the green portions of the map represent areas where both a TMDL and an impairment are present. You can see that at least a portion of every town in the state has an impairment, a TMDL, or more often than not, both. So let's talk about an overview of the Watershed Improvement Plan requirements. Each of these phases will be submitted through the Stormwater Document Submittal Service via NJDEP Online. The department recognizes that development of the WIP is a significant undertaking, so we'll definitely be available for guidance throughout the process. The development of the plan is divided up into 3 phases. The first is due by January 1st, 2026. And the goal of this first phase is to inventory all stormwater related information, which will then be used to inform what is likely to be contributing to the stormwater quality and quantity problems, where improvements could be implemented, and then that would lead us into phase 2. This phase is due January 1st, 2027, and the goal of this is to evaluate the information that you previously gathered in phase 1 and to determine what potential improvement projects can be implemented for both quality and quantity concerns. And then at the end of that year, phase 3 will be due December 1st, 2027. And the goal of this last phase is to select which of the potential quality and quantity improvement projects that you picked out in phase 2 that your towns can implement and on what schedule. This first phase is going to be due, like I said, January 1st, 2026, and will likely involve the SPC along with the engineering staff and the public works staff, as it is closely related to the stormwater infrastructure mapping work that is also required to be submitted on the same exact date. It will be important for some of those preparing this phase of the plan to be familiar with the topography of the town. This report will involve combining the infrastructure map information that we discussed earlier with additional mapping information or layers, most of which is or already available from the department via the open data, or if you have ArcMap online, you can visit NJGeoWeb's webpage. You can use the links in the mapping slides we discussed a little bit ago, or our Bureau's webpage experts are also working to develop an online web map that will aggregate all of these publicly available layers to allow you to create the required maps more efficiently and cost effectively, as opposed to each municipality researching and combining all of this information for their maps separately and individually. All of this data combined will create your WIP phase 1 map. This additional mapping information will include adding the water body classification information for receiving waters in the towns, such as FW2, non-trout, pinelands, or Category 1. You will also need to add the department's TMDL and impairments layers showing the subwatersheds or HUC 14s in your towns that are associated with each of the TMDLs and impairments. And eventually the TMDL percent reductions where applicable. And then this is our hardest part right now, as it is the layer that does not currently exist, but we are looking to include that in the future. You're also going to need to include the overburdened communities or the environmental justice areas information in layer, the impervious area layers, and the information in layer showing where all the other NJPTES regulated facilities are in your town. Identifying impervious areas that may be part of the water quality and quantity problems, and to identify the pervious areas where there may be easier opportunities to install BMPs and reroute your stormwater. The NJPTES facilities information will help identify other regulated facilities that could either be a part of the problem or may be able to be a part of the solution, or both. The environmental justice or overburdened communities information may also help prioritize where improvements are needed sooner. The H&H database is also a good resource to use as a starting point. It was developed by the Soil Conservation Districts, originally with NJDEP funding around 2011, and the Soil Conservation Districts digitized many available, previously approved plans and new plans received for construction projects. It's available on Rutgers' website, and you can do a simple browser search for hydro.rutgers.edu. This information may help you identify many of the structural stormwater facilities that have been constructed in your town. But please understand that this database is not all-inclusive and may not have been updated with new projects or as-built plans if they differed from the applications. These facilities may not be on your radar. They may not be properly maintained, or they may not have been, or they may have been abandoned altogether and not functioning at all currently. However, if they are being maintained properly, these facilities could help identify areas of the town where stormwater is being managed more than other areas, or where some well-designed retrofits may help you manage even more stormwater. They may also help you discover areas of the town where stormwater was supposed to be managed, but poor or absent maintenance has created a hidden problem. The main piece of information that you have to determine, because the department does not have this information currently, and this will be the cornerstone of your future actions and will help you inform you when you are investigating sources of and solutions to TMDLs and impairments, is going to be the drainage area for each outfall or groups of outfalls. With that piece of the puzzle, you'll be able to connect the downstream water quality and quantity problems to the upstream activities and problems that are going on in these drainage areas. This way, you can target site-specific solutions to resolve them or identify other entities that may also need to become involved. So you may decide now or after the phase 1 mapping and inventory has been completed and evaluated by your municipality that you want to combine your improvement efforts with other towns, with more MS4 permittees or other types of NJPTES permittees, and even other third parties such as watershed groups. This collaboration is completely supported by the department. However, to ensure no one else speaks for your municipality, any regional WIP collaboration would need to be endorsed in writing by each municipality and specifically state which part of the town in HUC 14 terms the regional WIP will apply to, and what specific projects and responsibilities will be undertaken by each municipality. The regional WIPs will need that extra level of detail to make sure there is no misunderstanding between entities and or the department. And then some potential partnership ideas that you can see on this slide. You can have 2 or more MS4s that discharge into the same or adjacent HUC 14s that share a TMDL or impairment. You can also have those that are managed by a watershed group or a similar organization, and then those that are managed by an existing regional authority. So phase 2, this report will be created by using the mapping information from phase 1, in addition to the potential water quality and quantity improvement projects targeted at the town's TMDLs and impairments, including areas that have been experiencing flooding and complaints. The report will also need to include an estimate of the reduction of pollutants and/or the flow, a summary of feedback from public sessions, an estimate of funding needs, and a tentative implementation schedule. Projects will often involve disconnecting stormwater runoff from being discharged directly into waterways. For instance, in an area where there is a TMDL or impairment for temperature, which is usually triggered in trout waters in the summer months because trout are cold water fish and are very sensitive to warmer water. The direct flow of runoff from a blacktop parking lot into a stream could be potentially disconnected from that stream and redirected to a basin, a rain garden, or a swale, for instance. So it doesn't transfer all of the heat from a blacktop parking lot to a trout stream with the first flush of every rain event. These types of projects would be great alternatives to allow the water to cool off and infiltrate through the soil before it reaches the streams and aquatic environment. For some other parameters, such as total suspended solids, TSS, phosphorus, and nitrogen, there are some best management practices that we have published removal rates for in the Stormwater BMP manual. Some other parameters and other BMPs, we suggest looking online to see what information has been published, such as using one parameter as a surrogate for another and use that to propose improvements for your plan. And remember that if you disconnect runoff from a part of an area or the whole area that flows to an outfall, that will yield 100% reduction for all parameters from that area. The department is also requiring that municipalities solicit input from residents, businesses, neighboring towns that share sub-watersheds, other permitted dischargers, and anyone else who needs to be informed and who may be able to offer ideas and suggestions. Hosting stakeholder sessions is an important and required step since these projects may involve tax dollars, disruptions of roads, or use of public property, and many of the interested groups may have observational stormwater information. The permittee shall post the watershed assessment report on its dedicated stormwater webpage and announce a 60-day public comment period. For phase 3 of the plan, this is going to be the final plan that will take the information presented in phase 2's report, which was public noticed. You're going to evaluate those public comments, the cost of funding, the practicability, etc., and will identify which projects are to be implemented, including timelines to initiate and finish, and the expected results. This report will need to include a summary of locations and load reductions of water quality improvement projects that have been chosen to be implemented, both public and private, and how the chosen projects will be coordinated with other regulatory requirements, implementation schedules, and cost. The watershed improvement plan will also need to be reviewed and updated when necessary based on the biennial review of revisions to the impairments of the permittee's water bodies, which is based on the department's integrated report and newly adopted TMDLs, as well as the updates to the overburden community layer and any other layer updates. Finally, I want to note that we are preparing a WIP template, which will include guidance material for permittees to use. This way, all 557 potential WIPs are developed statewide following the same format to make it easier for the public and the department to review and compare. So Form 12 of the SP3 is the last one that you'll see. And here is where you'll describe how you are developing your watershed improvement plan, any collaboration efforts with other towns, and where people can find information about public meetings. All right, so before we move ahead, we're going to have the next 5 or so minutes to, if anybody needs to raise their hand or talk about any questions in the chat regarding the watershed improvement plans. All right, I'll give it about another minute or so if anybody has questions they want to raise their hand or ask in the chat, and then we'll get started on the final section. All right, everyone, let's get started on the last leg of the presentation. So for this part, we're going to discuss the NJDEP Online. This is a tool you will use to submit everything to the department, including annual reports, which most of you should all be familiar with, SP3s, any map data, etc. This is opposed to attaching documents to emails to your case manager, as was done in the past. So I'll walk you through how to get set up and show you what the screens will look like. So every year between January 1st and May 1st, Tier A permittees will report on the previous calendar year by accessing the NJDEP Online to submit their annual report along with the supplemental questionnaire. If you discovered any cases of illicit connections within that reporting year, you're also required to submit those illicit connection inspection reports as attachments to the annual report. If this is your first time submitting an annual report and would like to see previous year submissions, just contact your MS4 county case manager and they'll be able to provide whatever you need. So now let's get into a demonstration of the NJDEP Online tool, which, like I said, will be used to submit annual reports and to access the stormwater document submittal service, which is new. And this is how you will submit all other stormwater materials for the department to review. All right, so first up, we're going to learn how to create an NJDEP Online account. This, I would say, is where we get the most questions from any new SPCs. So if it's redundant for you, then just bear with us for a few minutes. So like I said, hopefully most of you are familiar with, or at a minimum have already set up an NJDEP Online account, but we'll go through the process for everyone in case anyone needs to set up a new account in the future, or if there are any new SPCs in attendance today who have not done this yet. To create or log into your DEP Online account, you will start by going to the DEP website and choose DEP Online under the Information Tools tab. If you already have a DEP Online account, choose Login to NJDEP Online. Sounds easy. From there, you will be taken directly to the My New Jersey login screen. If you're making a new account, please choose Request Access to NJDEP Online. And I know that Kristen said before with some of the mapping tutorial, it may be hard to see, but when you print these, I promise that they are illegible and should help walk you through this process. So new DEP Online users must first provide your contact name, organization name, and that would be whichever municipality you're representing, and then your email address. You'll then be taken to a screen to link your new DEP Online account with your My New Jersey account. If you are a new DEP Online user, but already have a My New Jersey account, fill out Section A. It may also auto-populate for you. And if you're brand new to both accounts, please fill out the Section B and click Create this new My New Jersey account and link it to my DEP Online account. Keep track of your login information for next time, as the department cannot access this information for you. So if you forget your login ID, your password, your certification PIN, or any of the challenge questions, there's helpful links on the screen to reset them. But just note that it takes a few days before you receive the email with instructions on resetting your account. So when creating the account, keep in mind that you can set your certification PIN to be the exact same as your My New Jersey password. So these days, people have so many passwords and PINs to remember. We recommend that it would be helpful to record your account information and store it in a safe place. From there, you'll then be taken to add additional contact information and a contact number. You'll continue to the next section and choose to answer the 5 security questions. And be sure to remember to record your answers, as you will need these later in order to submit your annual report. You will then be asked to create a certification PIN, which you will also need in the future to electronically certify in the system. Next, you will need to add a few services, which include the Municipal Stormwater Regulation Program, or MSRP Annual Report, and the Stormwater Document Submittal Service, which is the new service. And then from there, you will be able to add any facilities that you may be the SPC for. And then when we say facilities, we're referring to the municipality. At the end of the registration process, you should be directed to the My Services screen. From here, you will also need to add both the MSRP Annual Report and the Stormwater Document Submittal Service by clicking associated checkboxes, which can be found under the Division of Water Quality. And then once you complete that, click OK, and you'll be redirected to the My Workspace homepage. For existing users, in order to add a new service, you will need to click on the Configure Services button under the Service Selection section on your My Workspace page. This will bring up the list of available service mentioned before. All right, so now you will need to add each facility or town name that you are the SPC for. If you are the SPC for multiple towns, you only need one online account, but can add multiple facilities to your account from this screen. From the My Workspace page, find the My Facilities/Program Interest section and click on the Add Facilities button. Click the third bullet down, which is going to be Retrieve NJDEP's permit numbers. Choose Water Quality from the NJDEP drop-down menu and add your facility's permit number, which will always begin with NJG. The facility number can be found by looking at your request for authorization that was emailed to each municipality in December 22. If you cannot find that, you're welcome to reach out to your county case manager and we'll help you out. So from there, you will then be brought to the results screen. Click the checkbox next to your town's name and click the Add Selected Services button. You should now see your town or town's names listed in the grid in the My Facility section. So now we're going to talk about how to submit an annual report in case you're new to this process, which is a big responsibility of the SPC. It will be to complete and submit the annual report each year. So there are 6 steps to submitting your annual report each year, and let's go through them. So before we get started on submitting an annual report, it's important to note that anytime there is a new SPC, they must create their own account and cannot use the account of the previous SPC or finish any work they started on the annual report. Once logged into your My New Jersey account from your My Workspace page under the Service Selection section, you will click MSRP Annual Report. If you manage multiple towns, you will first need to select the permit or town you will be submitting for and click Continue. From there, once on the permit submittal requirements screen, you will click on the hot link that says Submit an Annual Report and Certification for the year that you are reporting on. Annual reports are always going to be due on May 1st for the prior reporting year. Once inside the annual report screen, you will work through the report detail screens, so parts A through F. Each section requires you to complete the information and validate on the bottom right-hand side of the screen before continuing. This is the bulk of the annual report where you will need all your records from the previous year before beginning. If you need to close the report and start at another time for any reason, you will first need to validate the page you were on and then save in order to keep all the information previously entered. You can re-access that report from the My Workspace page under the My Services in Progress section by clicking the service ID number link that is associated with that report. After all your information is correctly entered, validated, and saved, you will then upload any required attachments such as the supplemental questionnaire. And if you had any illicit connections, you would fill out that illicit connection inspection report form. After uploading the documents, click continue and you will arrive at the contact screen. This should already be filled out with the current SPC's information. If not, you would have to please do that then and then click continue. As part of the uploaded attachments, which we just discussed, you will need to fill out the supplemental questionnaire and save to your computer prior to uploading it. And then you can find a blank supplemental questionnaire on our Tier A webpage. Without the supplemental questionnaire, the annual report will not be considered complete. So the final step to submitting your annual report is to certify the submission using the PIN that was created when you created your DEP Online account. After this, a summary of the submitted annual report is available to download for your records. And then if your My New Jersey account is new, you may not have access to previous annual reports for your municipality. And then, like I said earlier, if you need access to those previous submissions, please feel free to reach out to your county case manager. And then you can see back on the My Workspace page in the My Services Submitted section, you should see submission successful next to the annual report that was just submitted. And this is how you'll know that you did it properly. So how to submit other items. I know that we've been talking about the submittal service, the stormwater submittal service, which is new this year. So we'll go through how you add that service to your workspace. So some of the required submissions, you'll be using NJDEP Online to send us your updated stormwater pollution prevention plan each year, the MS4 infrastructure map, any stormwater control ordinance amendments that you make, your municipal stormwater management plan changes, and any watershed improvement plan materials that you have to submit. Also, if you have other materials, such as an ordinance you'd like us to review, you may submit it via NJDEP Online as well. So once you have logged in and clicked on the Stormwater Document Submittal Service hot link, you will see the instructions page. This screen details the intended use of the service. You can just click continue at the bottom of the page. And then once on the screen, enter the name of the submission or project to identify the document. So for example, certification form for ABC Incorporate or stormwater infrastructure map for Storm Township. The name you enter will appear on later screens for your use after you submit the document. So be sure to pick an appropriate name so it's easy to find what you need later. The comments field is optional for later reference. This service is not to be used for submitting the GIPD stormwater applications, such as an individual or general stormwater permit or a grant application. You are now on the submission type selection screen. Click the radio button for stormwater document submittal and click continue. You are now on the facility selection screen. All sites that are associated with your user profile will be listed on this screen. If you do not see any sites or cannot find the site for which you are submitting the document, follow the instructions on the page to search for facilities by either the program interest number, the PIID, or the facility name, your town name, and add them to your profile. Once on the facility selection screen, you will need to click on the radio dial button next to the facility related to submission and click continue. Next, you will be directed to the select activity screen. Here you will use the information provided to determine which activity you should be submitting the information under. Click the corresponding button next to the permit activity linked to the document you are trying to load, then click continue. If you have any questions during this process, please contact your county case manager. And then the next screen will be the contact screen, like you saw previously. Here you should fill in the contact information for the person submitting the document. And then also note, if you'd like to save the submitter's contact information for future document submissions, check Save to My Favorite Contacts. You will then be brought to the attachment upload screen. This is where you upload the document you want to submit. Make sure to select the proper attachment type from the drop-down box, click Add Attachment, then click Browse to locate the document from your computer. Also, make sure to rename your document to conform with the instructions on the screen and select Open to attach the document. And then you're going to want to repeat this step for any additional documents you would like to submit to us. After attaching the document, you'll then need to choose the proper document type and subtype from the drop-down boxes. Click the Continue button at the bottom of the page once completed for all of the documents you're submitting. From there, you'll then be brought to the service certification screen. This is going to be the last step of the stormwater document submittal service. You will then answer the challenge question in the challenge response section. You'll enter your certification PIN and click Certify at the bottom of the page. This is very similar to certifying sections for the annual report. If you forget either your challenge question or your PIN, you are able to click the Forgot button and follow the instructions to reset each. You will now see the facility submittal summary screen. Your document has now been uploaded, and all the information you filled out on the previous screens will show up in the summary. You're able to print a copy or save a copy of the summary from the screen. Once completed, scroll to the bottom of the page and click Return. You'll then be brought back to the My Workspace page. Here you'll be able to view any submissions you make under the My Services Submitted section. To review any of the submissions, click Summary. Your submission should reflect the status Submission Successful. If it does not say this, especially if it says Submission Failed, please contact DEP. Then you should send an email to portalcomments@dep.nj.gov to find out what went wrong. When you send the email, please include the service ID number, which you can find in the first column, so that the administrator knows which service failed. Also note that a successful submission does not mean that the document, the submitted document has been reviewed or approved by us here at the department. It simply means that we successfully received it. In the event you are disconnected in the middle of the process and need to return to it later, you are able to log in again and navigate to the My Services work page. You'll scroll down to the My Services in Progress section and click on the ID number to resume the submission. These slides are very detailed, but we also have some condensed information in the form of guides and an FAQ posted on the MS4 webpage. When you set up your account, please remember to keep your account information somewhere secure. The second document we have on this slide is something that walks you through the process of creating an NJDEP online account, much like I just did. And it will also show you how to submit the annual report that you can continually reference after this presentation. The links to both documents are here on the slide, or you can find them by navigating the MS4 webpage. And then, as always, if you have any problems, please email your MS4 County Case Manager. Alrighty, so that concludes the formal presentation portion of today's training. And then in the time remaining, we'd like to open the floor to any questions. If I don't know what's been going on in the chat, if we want to discuss any of those out loud, or if anybody wants to raise their hand and unmute themselves to discuss questions on any of the permit conditions or anything that we talked about today. I know we have scheduled till about 12:30, so let's give it like maybe 5 to 10 minutes for some questions, and then we'll conclude today's training.
Yeah, I had gotten some responses. Just again, if people are joined only through the phone, if you could at this point unmute yourself and say your name and who you represent, that would be appreciated, so we can make sure you are included in the certifications when we send them out. If for some reason you're unable to unmute yourself, or you can email either your case manager. So we have two, I can tell you the two numbers that I haven't gotten a response yet for, are the two 609 area code numbers It's one is 609-259-3151. So whoever is calling from that number, if you could unmute yourself, the 201 numbers, I'm good. I have both of you, who you are. It's just, and then the other 609 number is 609-654-9383. So either of those 609 numbers, if you could unmute yourself and tell me who you are.
Yeah, Mark Whitsack, Medford Lakes Public Works.
All right, thank you.
Lori Roth, Allentown Borough.
I thank you both. So I think that wraps it up. Yeah, so the certifications will be emailed out to everyone. So there was one more question I think that came up about if the email address associated with your online account needs to be changed. There is a profile tab at the top of the screen. You should be able to just go in there and edit your email address. And that'll correct it. But yeah, yeah, those certifications will be emailed out. I just want to thank everyone for joining today. I know it was a lot of information that we're throwing at you. There's copies of the slides available on our website as in both just standard form and then a note form if you wanted to write your notes next to those. The recording will be up there. I think that's about it. So thanks again, everyone, and we'll be in touch in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.